Now, Fiona Moore is our schools consultant for Europe. She's been involved in education for over 25 years, initially in a Croydon primary school, but since then in international schools in Kuwait, Borneo and Shanghai. She's also worked as an IT trainer for Anglia Ruskin University here in the UK. She now supports European schools with advice, workshops and seminars and our assessments and resources. And obviously, as you can see from the screen, she's here to talk to you about our dyslexia products. So Fiona, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Andy. As I say, good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. I'm really pleased to be able to do this webinar this morning because as an education consultant, I often get asked about our products for dyslexia, and we have a variety of them. And what I hope to do this morning is go through ones that I think will be right for you, so you've got more confidence in choosing the right one. As I say, I'm a teacher myself, but I'm not an ed psych. And I think what these tests help you to do, and the screeners help to do, is have the confidence as a teacher, as a learning support teacher, to be able to say, yeah, that child probably has got some dyslexia tendencies and how great that is. And then obviously then go on to look at maybe involving an ed psych. As I say, normally we often have a gut feeling, or a parent does, that students' progression score is just not quite right. And again, as you'll see, these products help with children, very young children, right up to 15, 16, as I say, on that. If I just click on the first one. So what is dyslexia? Obviously, I'm not going to go into it in big detail, but I think we're just as a starting block. If we look in 2007, the British Dyslexia Association adopted the following definition of dyslexia. It's seen as a specific learning difficulty that mainly affects the development of literacy and language related skills. It's likely to be present at birth, we know this, and it can be lifelong in its effects. So obviously it's a good idea to be able to, find it sort of specifically earlier on. And obviously it's characterised by difficulties with phonological processing, rapid naming, working memory, processing speed, and the automatic development skills. And these often, and not all of these, sometimes it's just one or two, and not all of these match up to an individual's other cognitive abilities. Often that child's very articulate, comes across as very able, but it's when they get down to writing or actually understanding or quickly reading something on a screen or as I say, in class. And then, as I say, that's when you, as a teacher, get a gut feeling, or the parents start saying, what's happening here? You know, so we need to be able to address this, and I say earlier on the better, really. And we need to then put interventions in. It's not going to the children, just general education and teaching, we need extra support and so on for these children. And so these tests, the screen, are really important, so we can identify these children and start giving them help straight away, as I say, on that. So what I hope to do today is we're going to look at what the different tests assess. There's slightly different areas of dyslexia we can look at, and so what they comprise of and why. The EAL guidance, because obviously I realise that in being in international schools, you're going to have a lot of children with English as second, third language, and the further support necessary on that. So for the first one I'm going to look at is we've got a dyslexia screener and dyslexia portfolio. Now these have been around for a while. A lot of schools use them. I really find them really useful. And I'd say I'm going to go through the differences between them as well and how they work together on here. So what we have with Dyslexia Screener is it identifies varying degrees of dyslexic tendency in students. It's recommended as one that you've probably used for the whole class. You wouldn't just, you may, as I say, because it's quite, it just looks at very simply whether that child might have tendencies for dyslexia. It will recommend intervention strategies, and it's from age 5 to 16 years. The duration of the test is 30 to 50 minutes. It's digital, so they can do it on computers, laptops, and you will have 3 different starting points. So it's chosen automatically by age, obviously depending on their age group. And there's 6 subtests, which I'm going to go through as well with you. Now, again, as I say, this is a very basic test, and the idea is if you do find that the child has got moderate to severe dyslexia, then obviously there's a further test to look at. So let's look at these 6 subtests. So you've got here 2 ability ones, really important. So you've got the non-verbal reasoning, and the one at the end, the vocab one, the verbal comprehension. Now, those ability tests, those of you that may have used our assessments like CAP4 and so on, similar in that way. So they're looking at a child's potential ability and just to see how able they are as a student on there. So for that one, you've got, for subtest 1, you've got missing pieces. It tells how well a learner can recognise patterns in arrangements of shapes. So the idea is it gets progressively harder. They have to work out where the shape is, a bit like an IQ test or like this the spatial one that you've got in CAP4. The verbal one is test the learner's knowledge of word meanings. So that you get an audio on there and it says choose the picture that goes best with the word carrying, for example, missing pictures. Now, what I'm showing you as examples of different random ones from different levels. So don't think, oh, that's too easy for my students, or that'll be too hard, because these are just examples. But the thing with this, with the vocab one, obviously, if you've got a child that's EAL, they're going to be quite low on that one, but you know that already. So the non-verbal should sort of show their score. It doesn't really matter. They don't need English to actually achieve a high score on that one. Then you've got the diagnostic tests. So you've got the word sounds and tests how well a learner can identify individual sounds from in words. Again, really important with identifying dyslexia tendencies. So you'll look at these pictures, which one begins with an S. So on there, sorry, stuff. So on that. And then you've got the other diagnostic one is looking at speed, processing, your working memory. So test the speed at which the learner can deal with simple visual information. And then the last 2, well, the attainment ones are word recognition with your spelling and reading as well. So you've got like a reading comprehension. So again, on the reading one, you've got audio, which word would go best in the sentence. So on that, so they put one in. So these are sort of standard tests that you expect in a dyslexia test anyway. But they say they're put together in a certain way, and we're testing on certain things on there. I'm going to show you the example of one in a minute, but I just wanted to go through the scoring because those of you again that are used to our CAP4 or our progress tests or our NGRT ones will know that we use the standardised age scores. And this is what we use with the with our dyslexia screeners and tests on there. So what you've got there is best to remember it is that the average on here is 100. You can see the bell curve there. It's based on child's age. It's very important you put the child's age in and months as well. And the lowest you can get on the standardisation score is 59. The highest you can get is 141. So anything sort of above 100 is average or above, or just below 100, just below on there. You've also got, I put on there national percentile ranks it shows, and it also with the dyslexia test, it does look at stay nines, which are right at the bottom, which are 1 to 9. I've put the T and the Z scores in because the portfolio dyslexia portfolio we're going to look at and the rapid LAS and COPS also provide T and Z scores, which I know ed sites love as well. They're important for them as well, so they are available if you need them. On the dyslexia screener that's not, but it's because it's just a very basic test. So just so you get an idea of there. So if we look at reports that a dyslexia screener gives on here, so this child is female, Claire Andrews, and it's saying that she's produced as somebody who's severely dyslexic. Now, when you first look at it, you're thinking, well, the missing pieces and vocab, she's done really well in. She's got, you know, over 100. She's very able. Again, quite classic with dyslexia, as you'll know yourself, that a lot of dyslexic children are very able in that, you know, say they've got some great ideas, but they have very much a lot of trouble processing things very quickly and getting things done on paper. So this is very classic as a dyslexic report. So missing piece and vocab, I don't think she's EAL because her vocab is pretty high on there. And even her spelling's not too bad, and her reading. And it's probably because she's a very able and she's got real potential there, is that she's able to then make up for some of her problems by using you know, ability in that respect. But you can see if you look at the word sounds on there, the second one down, the orange one, and the fourth one down, visual, the say it's really low down on there, and these are these ones we do have to be really careful with, because without, if you have inadequate phonological processing abilities, they do, you know, it can really affect your reading, and it can go on, say, as they get older, to really affect what they're reading. They may skip words, and it will just get progressively harder for those children. So they need support straight away as soon as we know this. And again, you know, it's often found with adults as well that haven't been identified with the visual search and the word sounds on there. And your working memory, again, it can be affected with the speed on there as well. So again, that can affect when they're reading examination, in exams and so on. They may miss out words and things that are really important. So we really need to address that for those children there. Now, this E at the top, if you see Dyslexia E, I'll explain that as well. So what we'll have is you'll have something like a report like this. What you'll then be able to look at is you've got a letter code. You see that box there, it says description. So for A, there's no signs of dyslexia. B, few signs of dyslexia. Again, you may wish to go on and test those children. C, mild, D, moderate, and E, severe. And I should say she was severe because she had the diagnostic test was really low, even though, say, ability was fine on that. So what we've got there is, where would you go next once you've got these results? So we suggest that you then follow it up. There is a dyslexia guidance book which you can buy from us, which I know a lot of schools swear by, that it's great. It's full of really great information and so on, so you can use that to then refer to. But then you'd want to now go on to another test, a further test, which is offers much more in depth and say which areas and interventions that you can help your students with. So I don't expect you to read this, so don't worry, I'm going to go into it in more detail just so you've got an idea. So we've got the dyslexia screen at the top there, which we just spoke about. We've then got the dyslexia portfolio here on the right, which is one I'm going to go through now. And then I will be mentioning the COPs and LAS, which are available digitally. Okay, so with the dyslexia portfolio, I say it is paper-based. So you expect to do one-to-one. So it's not one that you do on a cohort or your actual whole class. This is one where you've got children that you really feel need to be identified very quickly, and you need something to show exactly where you need to support them. So I'd say it's for ages 5 to 16 years. So you can use for the really young ones as well. It does take about 40 to 60 minutes. And there is, once you've done it on the paper, there is an online dyslexia report generation tool, which I'm going to show you in a minute as well, which is available free on our website. You've got 9 subtests this time. So you've got 4 depending on age, 5 are progressive. So the idea is they get progressively harder if they're doing okay. They'll slightly get harder. And I will show you those. So what you've got, so these are all papers. So unfortunately, I can't show any screenshots, which I will with some of the others. But as I say, this gives you an idea of what it's testing for. And again, it's very much to say those speed, the phonics and so on as well, which we know really can be a troublesome for dyslexics. So again, and so you've got what so there's literacy cluster, phonological cluster. This piece sounds progressively getting harder, and then you've got the age ones there as well. Processing speed. Now, this rate of writing is the younger ones, you'll get them to copy maybe letters. The older ones, you will ask them to write certain words or certain sentences. It's looking at their actual, how well they write, not so much the content. Well, it's not the content, it's just how they're writing, and that's the writing area of that. The other thing with the dyslexia portfolio, you need to have done, you see the red with general ability score will also is required to generate a dyslexia index. So you will need to have done such as the Dyslexia Screener and have a score for it in order to generate a dyslexia index with the portfolio. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go on to the next slide, if this is, say, it's downloadable off our website, it's the dyslexia portfolio report generator. So you put in this is the ability test name. So for example, you would put in the Dyslexia Screener score on that one. So the vocab and the missing pieces, that would be the one you would put in there. If you've got the CAT4, the non-verbal reasoning score, you can put that in. You may have another one of ours, so for example, the GL assessment non-verbal reasoning or the British Picture vocab scale. So any of those will do. It's just so it's got an ability score there to actually then refer to when you've got all the other test scores in there, and you'll see. So you just put in the information there, and then whether the child's copied or free writing, depending on the age on that one. Okay, this is don't expect you to read that too much, but you can just see how much more in depth that report is compared to the Dyslexia Screener one. So it's really going into detail. Now you'll notice the general ability score at the top, which would have been from the Dyslexia Screener, for Emma is quite high, it's above average. Which is what we, again, quite classic dyslexia we'd expect. So she's quite able, her potential's really high or above average, but we can see there straight away there's low diagnostic tests, low phononym and phonological cluster is low on there. And again, even her writing, if you look right at the bottom, is pretty low as well on there. And again, this refers to the letter code that we looked at in the Dyslexia Screener. So you've got D for moderate dyslexia on that one. The great thing about this, there is a lot of information on the portfolio. So again, this is all generated when you put in the information. So it's literally generated, you can print it off. You've then got here as well information with the standardization score, but there's also the IPSA score as well down the bottom here. So it really goes into detail on here. And then you've got a report as well, which explains how, for example, the processing speed, the third one down there. So the cluster evaluates the pupil's efficiency rather than accuracy in the management of information. So and it explains what it does. But then it's also got each child. So Emma's speed at processing information is slow, so it's important to speak slowly and so on. So there's a lot of interventions and support suggested there as well. And remember, we've also got the dyslexic portfolio booklet, which a lot of teachers like to refer to. It's really useful in there. There's some case studies and so on that. So that would be their report there. Where to go with the dyslexia portfolio? As I say, there's the guidance book to look at with the interventions, but also it's worth remembering that there is aspects of the assessment can also be used for the older children for evidence in the JCQ Form 8 application for access arrangements, such as if your children are taken for IGCSEs or so on, being able to, it will help to go towards proving that child might need a scribe or be able to use a laptop or extra time in exams and so on. So it's one to consider as well on there. Okay, so that is our portfolio screener and our dyslexia screen and dyslexia portfolio ones. Now we do have in the last 2 to 3 years we've put together one that is completely digital and runs on a different platform to what you might be used to. Those of you that do use some of our tests, such as Test One, it runs on the GL Ready platform, and it's 3 different dyslexia tests depending on children's age. So I'm going to go through that. It's got 8 to 11 here. The rapid does go further up to 15 and 11 months, as does the LAS, but the LAS is available as a CD for the old children. But again, I'll explain that. So if I just click on that, so what is being assessed? So rapid, as I say, if you think about the dyslexia screener, similar in that you could probably test all your children very quick, really fun test. Kids love to use this one. And it's, there's 3 different areas it starts at depending on their age. COPS, it's for younger children, and again, because they're very young, this is like 4 to 7 years. The idea behind here is it's looking sort of what the cognitive areas and so on, and working memory. And it says 45 minutes, but we don't expect them to sit there 45 minutes. Each test I'll show you again, you can just do one test and then have a little break and maybe do another one or do one the next day. They're not intended to be used all in one go because, like I say, they are very young. And LAS is for 8 years up. And again, so the tests are slightly longer, and you've got looking at reading, spelling, and reasoning. And as I say, you've then got the 11 to 16-year-old. It's a CD download, and similar on that. So so what we've done with these is the reports are available straight away. So you set up the child, you put the date of birth in, they do the test, and you've got the reports straight away. You don't need to put anything else in. All content is updated. It's culturally sensitive and fully internalized. So and we've got I say it's very up to date. There's clear professional reports on here on that one. I just wanted to show you some of the screenshots on here. So, for example, with the rapid test, depending on the child's age, it will start on one of these. It will give them one of these three screens. So, for 4 to 7-year-olds, you'll have the crayons, races, and rhymes. With the older ones, funny words, mobile phone, word shopping, and then the older ones, the 8 to 11, mobile phone, non-words, and segments. I'm going to go through just the 8 to 11 years one, just so you get an idea of what it looks like. So you'll have things like segments. So what you've got here is the sound. So for example, segments would be the audio will probably say door handle, for example. So door handle would be what without the door. So then they'll be clicking on it and hopefully they would find handle. With each of these tests, there's lots of practices. So and the idea behind the practices is that they will get one right before it then goes on to the real test on there. So the mobile phone, you've got numbers. It'll start off with just putting 2 numbers in and then it'll disappear. So they have to then repeat those 2 numbers. That'll go up to 6. So it progressively gets harder. And then they have to do it the other way backward as well. Non-words, so obviously I would say that's a stray bray, and then it'll then have different variations of that. So the proper one, if they then click on stray bray, they click on what they think it says and it'll go on to the next one as well on there. Okay, so what you get from there is a report. So this child is quite a classic dyslexic. So there's not, as I said, they haven't done that many, but already you think, yeah, we need to go on and look a bit further into this one. So as you can see already, the phonological processing, sort of in the average, not too bad. That was the segments one. Auditory, so the mobile phone is sort of on the average bit, but the one that would really worry you, and again, classically, often dyslexic suffer from this, is the phonic skills, not actually being able to hear all the words in a, all the sounds in a word, or then obviously them not being able to build up their own spellings and then being able to then read new words and so on. So again, this is one that needs to address on there. And it's, as I say, it's quite a basic report, but there's information on there already. And again, you get your T and Z scores on there as well as your standardized age score. You'll then get this as well. It just says the probability of dyslexia of this child is high. You've got the telling you whether it's slightly below, very low. And then you'll always have, so it says, for example, look at the non-words, very low. Severe difficulty shown on the phonic skills test. You may find the indications for action table helpful. Now, the main thing to remember with the rapid Latin COPs is everything's online. So if you click that, it's usually a hyperlink. It'll take you to the GReady website. And then there is tables here, which are great. It'll take you to that age group. And so you've got already some indications for actions table there. So for example, non-words, phonic skills, as we said, this was very low. So the recommendations there is looking at multi-sensory approach to literacy, phonic skills. It then mentions, you see there, so see page 29, the rapid manual for appropriate phonic schemes. Now, again, these manuals are, well, I've found them really helpful. They are, if I just click on here, they are free to download, so you don't have to have already have purchased our products, but they're free on there, and they are a hive of real important information. They're written by one of our education consultants, Joanna Horn, and they include case studies for every possibility, basically. Attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity as well, dyslexia, SEN children, your EAL children, lots of lovely case studies on there, which I will quickly show you in a minute as well. But they are, it also explains a lot of the research behind why we do the tests, what the tests actually test in detail, and then obviously offers all the interventions on what type of programs or extra tests they have to go through and look at. So I'd say I really recommend that. If you've already got our products, look at that, but even not, if not, still have a look at it. It's worth a read, and I think you'll definitely learn something from there. They're really worthwhile. So that's where you go next. So you'd look at that. You then click on there. So we've got, I'm just going to go into the COPS one now. So you may have done the rapid already with the children. So this looks at assessment of cognitive ability for the very young ones. If these children have already taken the rapid one, they won't have to do all of these subtests. So I think with the rapid one, they would have done races, rhymes and crayons already. So that would already have gone, and then they've got the others to do as well. And obviously we realise they're so young, you might not want to do all of them. You just think, oh, you know, there's something, again, gut feeling, or there's something not quite right. Parents say they don't think they're listening properly, there might be something wrong with their hearing. Which test should we take first? So again, we've got a lovely little chart here that looks at sort of a quick COPS one that you could do. So you're only looking at 3 different activities. You may not all have done the rapid at all. You don't have to have done the rapid. You may just go straight to the COPS because, as I say, that you just want to do 3 quick tests for these children to have a look at. And these all address things such as a family history of dyslexia. Then you'd look at races, rabbits, rhymes. Maybe they've got glue ear, or the parents that they've got hearing difficulties, look at Wock, rhymes, letter names. Maybe there is speech problems, especially with the younger ones, or you've got reception coming in. So you've got rhymes, Wock and races and so on. And these really are really fun to do. And you can sit with the children and go through it with them. And so they do really enjoy these. I'm just going to show you some screenshots of just a few of them, just so you get an idea of what they're like. So with the clown, which is the clown one, colour discrimination, there will be a voice that says to them, can you paint the clown's body in red, or arm in red. So they will then, they already have that colour up there. So all they have to do is actually click on the red colour here, rather than the red at the top there. So it's all matching, and so it's very, very basic on that. You've then got, these do get a bit harder. This is quite a hard one. I've got to show some hard ones as well. You've got your visual verbal association memory on here, letter names. And again, they'll just start off, they're just made up letters. So you'll just start off with just one, and then it'll disappear, and they have to select the right one. And you get up to 3 on that. So that's quite a hard example. Again, they've got to remember the patterns, the shapes. This starts with just colours, so it's very easy to start with. So, for example, the square, they've got to remember what that pattern is. You can see a sort of circular is in that square. They'll disappear at the top, and then they'll just have just loads of just different shape, different patterns at the bottom, and they have to select the one that would have gone with the square, which is the circle. Again, that's quite a complicated one. Very beginning ones, that it's just block colours on there. And then this is auditory discrimination. So they'll both, if each child, if you click on each child, one will say brush, the other might say brick or something. So they've got to listen really carefully and click the child that says brush. You will have audio on there as well. This is the type of report you'll get. So there is speed on here as well. Now, the speed is not standardized. It's not a standardized age score on there. It just gives you an idea, again, good as for younger children as well, whether they just race through it. So the visual spatial one right at the top, the rabbits one, they have to guess with the rabbit size stuff. It was like a child just gone click, 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 and there's got quite a low score for that as well. As I say, and some of these, the visual associative memory, the Toybox one, they've done really well, and so they're pretty good at doing the letter shapes and so on. So you can have a look at that and say, but the majority of it's quite low on there. So again, classic dyslexia on that one. Again, there's more to it than that. Obviously, you've got the guide for interpretation, where you would then click again on the action table, which will give you information on where to go next and so on there on that one. The last one, I'm just going to quickly just show you the difference with the last one. This is obviously for the older ones, the 8 to 11, and this is where often we find that if a child has got dyslexia tendencies, they do tend to show more by now. The children may be in class, but it's starting to really show that they really do struggle in certain areas, and yet, you know, they seem a very able child and so on. So what we do, the last one, it's looking at, again, you've got 3 attainment tests, which are the sentence reading, single word reading and spelling. You've got the 2 ability. So again, like with the Cat 4, you've got and like the Dyslexia Screener, you've got the non-verbal reasoning and verbal reasoning. And then you've got the diagnostic test, the funny words, mobile phone, sea creatures and word chopping. And the sea creatures and mobile phone are progressive, so they get progressively harder, while the others are adaptive. So if they start finding things hard, it will go back to something easier on there. So, and again, you don't have to take these all at the same time. You see this child's already taken 3, but they'll all come back and do the other one. Visual memory, it's the sea creatures. This gets really hard, and they start off with 2 creatures, and they disappear. It shows you where they're going in those holes, and then they have to then click on them in the right order, well, where they go and which creatures, and it goes up to 6. So it's quite hard on that. So remembering where all 6 go when they disappear. Verbal reasoning, 2 pictures here. So the children have to work out which one links the 2. So you've got the rungs of a ladder, and the bell was rung for that one, so it's rung. Again, some are easy in this, some are harder than that. Non-verbal reasoning, again, you'd be used to this. It's if you use the Cat 4. So the idea is you've got the solid shapes at the top, circle, triangle, square, and then right at the bottom we've got just the outlines of the circle, triangle, and off to the next one will be a square, and they click on it on there. Again, some funny words on there. They have to say how they would pronounce that. So, so if I pronounce it as Nork, I then click on all of those speakers, and the one that says Nork, I assume was right, and then go on to the next one. What I want to do is I'll just quickly show you some of the case studies that are in the last manual that we just spoke about. There's some great information and case studies. Now this is a classic dyslexia child. This child is Tim's boy called Tim. He's 8 years 7 months, and his teachers felt he wasn't performing up to standard. He's regarded as average ability, but his written work's very poor, and he also has a tendency to be disruptive in the classroom. So what we can see here is say he also can be very clumsy and forgetful as well on there. But what we can see here, if you look down at the verbal reasoning and non-verbal reasoning right at the bottom, this child's well above average. He's got, you know, he's got good ability potential. But it's then if you look at the top here, single word reading, obviously finding really hard. There's all these attainment ones. Spelling again is pretty low, and say visual memory, auditory visual memory again slightly low, and phonic skills we can see is well way below on there. So again, very much a classic dyslexia child on there, and again you've got the interpretation on there as well. And so from that they found, say, a bright child but poor reading skills. What the manual suggested, things like such as the intensive use of the clicker 7, develop his confidence in skills. He could progress to Docs Plus and SimWriter 2. And he could also obviously looking at the spelling skills, word shop 5 and so on, used at home or after school or after he's finished his work and so on. So there's lots of different interventions that the manual would suggest like that. 2 other ones I just want to quickly mention, because I do get asked a lot about, well, you know, we're an international school, we've got a lot of children that have come in with English as a second, third language. How are they going to fare in a dyslexia report that's actually based, you know, for children that speak English as a first language? It should not, with these, it should not be a problem if you're aware of what each test actually assesses. So this is what I'm going to show you is 2 children, Meena and Rajid. The Meena's 8 years and 2 months, and Rajid's 9 years and 1 month. And they're both students. They've been there a year or so, but neither is quite a particularly good spoken English. And the teachers are worried because they feel that they're both quite able children, but they don't seem to be getting on that well. So that you know, so they decided to do these tests to see, you know, what might be the problem. Now you can see with Meena, we can see on a non-verbal reasoning, it's what, you know, it's average, if not above. Verbal reasoning slightly lower, but again, she's English second, third language. Her spelling seems to be fine, and so does the sentence reading, and actually even single word reasoning. And her visual memory is great. So actually, Mina is making improvements, probably not as quickly as the teachers would expect, but she is making improvements. So really, there's no real dyslexia tendencies there. So the idea behind that is we would then suggest that Mina carries on, teachers carry on and give her certain support, but she carries on. She doesn't really need dyslexic support or any interventions in that type. While Rajid, you can see it's slightly different. His non-verbal reasoning, again, he's an able child, potentials wise. Verbal reasoning is slightly below, but as we said, we expect that in EAL. But then if we then look at the visual memory, you know, your working memory, he's having problems, same with auditory, and he's listening to phonics and so on. He's having trouble, and that then obviously will affect his spelling and his sentence reading. So what we have offered, what they were offered, is say support with dyslexia. He was taken out some classes to give him support, and he was given a more highly structured multi-central program, which was directed to dyslexic difficulties. And again, practice on word shark 5 and so on there. And that's just his chart there as well on that one. Okay. Very quickly, I'm just going to go through and say again with EAL, because I do get a lot of teachers asking me about this. We did consider when we put it all together. There's for EAL children, again, they can be supported when they're younger. The mobile phone, they just need to know the numbers 1 to 9, and same with the animal names and so on there. But it just goes through really the support that they'll need if they were to take that test. But as I say, normally there's not a problem because we've got the assistant teacher to help them with that, and they do find them very fun to do as well on there. And there is some extra information on there. But again, this is all in the manual as well to help. One other thing I was just going to go through, as I say, the LAS is available for 11 to 15 years and 11 months, but as I say, that is on a download at the moment. It's not actually on the GL Ready platform. The other one that I sometimes get asked is, for the really older ones, is the LAD Plus, which is for say 15 years plus. And again, that's on download at the moment, and that is useful for the older children, of children that are, for example, going to be taking A levels and so on there on that. And if I just remind you again, if you wanted to, again, we get asked a lot for the 15 to 16-year-olds, is there anything that will help with exam arrangements? It's the dyslexia portfolio is probably the best one to go for if you need to look at that and getting having support towards getting them extra time zone in exams on that. I think that just about brings me to the end of that. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fiona. And a reminder to everybody, if you do have any questions, then please put those in the Q&A box and we'll pick those up. We've got a couple in already, so I'll start relaying those to you. First one's around pricing. So obviously, you know, there's a charge for all of these, but are you able to give an indication of what the costs are for some of these, particularly LAS?
Yes, we've got the GL Ready is so it's platform based. It's so it's a year subscription, and you can use it on as many children as you want. Now, it depends whether you go for all 3, the Rapid, COPS and LAS, or just 1 or 2. So if you go for 1 on the GL Ready, it's £250. And then you're able to use that throughout the year on as many pupils as you want, and you can choose, it can be Rapid, LAS or COPS. If you go for 2, it's £350. And if you go for all 3, it's £375, and that includes everything on that. And you can obviously, you've got a platform there where you put your children in, you can see what tests they've done, and you've got the reports on hand as well. So you can build that up. And those of you that are familiar with TestWise, similar to that you've always got your children's information on there. With the LAS CD or download, the older ones, that it varies, but a standalone one, which obviously is it's valid for a year, but and you can use it on as many children as you want. I think at the moment that one is, if I remember right, I think it's about £270 on there. But again, it depends on which license you go for that. And the Dyslexia Screener is, so the Dyslexia Screener, which is the digital one, is available. It's 50 credits at a time. So each credit is a test per child. That's available on TestWise, our other platform, and that's £350. And again, they are valid for a year on that. And then the Dyslexia Portfolio, which is paper-based, is available as 10 booklets, and you'll then get the 10 booklets and all the information and cards and everything you need, because obviously remember it's a one-to-one with the teacher, and that's £248.
My apologies for putting you on the spot, because I wouldn't have been able to answer any of those questions like that, so well done.
If anyone's got any, just email me or email the team and I can get those all to you, because
absolutely. Well, when we send the recording out, we'll have contact details, so if there's any of these specifically, we'll be able to help you out with that question. That's great. A sort of specific question that's come in now. Child age 7, never been diagnosed with any learning difficulties previously. What would be your starting point? Which test would you use first?
I'd go to the COPS. It depends on how old they are. If they're several months over seven, they'd probably be better than start with the LAS on there. As I say, that would be the main one I think to start with. It's quick and easy, and as I showed already, you don't have to do all the tests. You can start, especially with the COPS one. There might be something that they've come in and they're just not responding properly. They don't seem to be listening in class, or it's just they don't be able to speak properly. Again, it's a great one to actually quickly identify in a very quick time whether the interventions need to go further and so on that.
Okay, thanks. Question about broader issues. So do the tests pick up anything else other than dyslexia? Can you use them to test for any other learning difficulties? I
think with you'll see that majority of the tests include the ability tests as well. So you've got the verbal, non-verbal. Obviously, if that child's EAL, they'll probably be quite low in the verbal anyway, so they can look at their language ability with English. And also what you tend to find, and again, the manuals, I keep pushing these manuals, but they're great if you download them. They've got loads of case studies that show typical ones of how you can pick up, for example, ADHD, where we saw the visuals, with the sea creatures. They tend to, children with that or the mobile phone tend to lose interest really quickly, because you have to really concentrate. So they tend to get low scores on that. So that'll pick that up very quickly. You've also got things like obviously just typical learning difficulties, but actually dyslexia isn't one of them. Often you'll find that their non-verbal ability will be quite low as well. Again, that's a real, you start thinking, if all of those are low, there's something going on here that's probably not dyslexia and so on. So it's both lots of tests for this dyslexia portfolio, as well as the rapid LAS. LAS is probably the best one. Actually, it really picks up on those different learning disabilities or so on in that respect.
Okay, that's it. I think that's it. The last question that's come in is, would we be willing to share the PowerPoint? So yes, we can do that. We can send that as a PDF along with the recording. And as I said earlier on, that's usually available about 48 hours after this session. So that's it, I think, for the webinar. Thank you very much, Fiona, for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you found that both useful and entertaining. And we look forward to seeing you soon when we run our next webinar. Keep a lookout for our emails promoting that. Cheerio.
Bye.